Hey guys, this is Miss Arlequin, and in this video we're going to be talking about summarizing and summarizing questions on an ELA test. So summarizing questions are some of the most difficult questions that you can find on an ELA test, but why? Usually when we write a summary in class, it's pretty simple. Well, that's actually a little bit deceiving. You think that it's simple, but the truth is a lot of people are not really completing summaries in the correct way. There's a difference between summarizing and retelling a story. And what a lot of students are really used to doing is just retelling what happened in a text. When you retell, you're telling a person or a reader the story or the text that you've read using your own words. So when you retell, you actually can include a lot of the details that were in the text. It's almost, I guess, similar to paraphrasing. So a retelling can actually be pretty long. A summary, on the other hand, is not supposed to include everything that happened in the text. A summary really should be shorter. It should use your own words, and it should be the main ideas only. So really, an effective summary, particularly if we're talking about nonfiction, which we are going to focus on in this video, should just be the central idea, what the text was mostly about. You really have to take into consideration the entire text, not just one part. And so, especially looking at a title is a really great little cheat because when an author writes a title, they're usually going to try to choose something that kind of matches what they've written, kind of sums up their central idea. And then in addition to that central idea statement, you're going to need your supporting details. So an effective summary is going to have at least 2 details that prove that the central idea is true. Now, there are a lot more than 2 details in a text. So does that mean that those details are unimportant? No. Every detail in a text should be there to help develop the central idea, but usually there are stronger details that if you took them out of the text and showed them to somebody, it would help them get the gist of what that text was about. So I'm going to use my favorite analogy for central idea and summarizing, and that's the Goldilocks analogy. Now, when Goldilocks is visiting the 3 bears' house, she finds their beds. She finds a bed that is too big, a bed that is too small, and a bed that is just right. For me, that is very similar to the central idea of a text. A central idea is the just right bed. It's perfect. It fits the entire text. It fits you, just like the bed Goldilocks was looking for fit her. Now, the bed that is too big is like a central idea statement that is too general. So, for example, if you said the article we read during Unit 3, World Wonders Worn Down, was about world wonders. That is the topic of the article, but when I hear a central idea statement that just says world wonders, there's a lot of different topics and subtopics that can be within that article. It could be the history of world wonders. It could be descriptions of what they look like, the locations, why people visit them, what you can do when you visit them. There's so many smaller topics, and we know that that article was not about all of those things. So this is too big. That's not what the article was about. We have to make it more specific. The too small bed is like the central idea statement that is too specific. Usually the too small statement is more like a detail. So, for example, using that same text, World Wonders Worn Down, if you said that article was about how the pyramids are 4,000 years old, absolutely not. That is a detail from the article, but it is way too specific. The whole article is not about the pyramids being 4,000 years old. You might be able to write an article about that. This could possibly be the central idea for a different article, but for this one, it is too specific. All right, so let's practice. We're going to look at some short passages, and we're going to see if we can identify the central or main idea, and which details are the most significant for developing that main idea or showing that main idea. The 8th grade at Ward Middle School has created a community garden on the old soccer field, facing Marshall Street. Class President Wanda Reed said, once the school completed the new soccer field, we saw a terrific opportunity to put the old field to good use. Our goal is to grow enough tomatoes, beans, and other vegetables to supply the Grant Avenue Soup Kitchen with as much fresh produce as possible. With the help of Miss Sanchez, their social studies teacher, and several parent volunteers, the students were able to clear a large plot of approximately 12 feet by 20 feet. All right, so now what is the main idea or central idea of this passage? Is it A, Wanda Reed is president of the 8th grade class at Ward Middle School? B, a teacher and several parent volunteers helped the class create a garden? C, the 8th grade made a garden to supply a soup kitchen with vegetables? Or D, the 8th grade plans to grow tomatoes, beans, and other vegetables? All right, so I'm going to use my Goldilocks logic to eliminate some of these statements. For example, Wanda Reed is president of the 8th grade class at Ward Middle School. That is way too specific. That's like saying the pyramids are 4,000 years old. That is just a detail. That's not what the whole passage was about. It wasn't all about Wanda being president. A teacher and several parent volunteers helped the class create a garden. Okay, is that true? Well, they talk about their goal of growing vegetables, and a teacher and parent volunteers were able to clear a large plot. All right, so they were able to help them clear the plot. Doesn't necessarily mean they help them then create the garden. They just help them actually clear out the land. So I'm going to say that this is not really accurate and that it only takes into account one sentence. The 8th grade made a garden to supply a soup kitchen with vegetables. Okay, this actually looks pretty accurate. I can see that it started out talking about the 8th grade. It talked about them wanting to grow vegetables to supply the soup kitchen. And it talks about how they are making a garden. All right, so this is actually very tempting. I'm going to put a dot here. This might be my answer. The 8th grade plans to grow tomatoes, beans, and other vegetables. Yeah, that is true. But if I compare answer choice C and D, answer choice C is actually saying the exact same thing as D. D is giving you the specific vegetables they're growing. And C is just using the term vegetables, which actually is still pretty much the same thing. If anything, mentioning the specific vegetables becomes too specific for a central idea. You don't need to name all of the specific vegetables. You could just use the term vegetables in the central idea or summary. And answer choice C takes into account that they're going to be donating to the soup kitchen, whereas answer choice D doesn't. So I'm going to eliminate D and say that C is the central idea. Now, which sentence would I actually use in my summary in order to support that central idea? So remember, my central idea is that they're creating a garden, supplying a soup kitchen. Is it sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, or sentence 4? All right, so once again, I'm going to remind you that all of the sentences in a text should be important and they all help develop the central idea. But if I had to choose one, and this is the one sentence I'm going to show to somebody who has not read the original passage, I want that one sentence to be full of enough information that they would really get the basic idea of what this passage was about. So I've already eliminated sentence 2 when I eliminated central idea. This only shows who the president is and that they're going to put the field to good use. Good use meaning what? I know the good use is the vegetable garden, but somebody who hadn't read the text would not know enough about the rest of the story to really get what it was about. So it cannot be sentence 2. This is too specific. Oh, no, sorry, not too specific. It's actually too general. Good use is general. Specific would be if they said a garden and helping a homeless shelter. All right, sentence 3. Our goal is to grow enough tomatoes, beans, and other vegetables to supply the Grant Avenue food kitchen with as much fresh produce as possible. This is very tempting. Sentence 4. They were helped. No, I'm going to eliminate this for the same reason I eliminated it in central idea. This just shows people helping them, but it doesn't mention anything here. Just mentions a large plot of land. Doesn't mention that it's a garden. And sentence 1, obviously, it mentions 8th graders and it mentions a community garden. So that's actually 2 really big ideas from my central idea. So I am now stuck between sentence 1 and sentence 3. Let me go back to sentence 3. Our goal is to grow enough tomatoes, beans, and other vegetables to supply. All right. Does that show that it's a community garden? It's kind of implied, but it doesn't state it as specifically as sentence 1. If I showed somebody sentence 1, I think they would really get what this passage is about. All right. So now let's look at some of the summarizing questions you might see on the state test. Here is a summarizing question from the 2015 ELA test for 6th graders. It comes from the passage Pigeon Patrol. If you need to review that passage, it is located in the Google Drive Student Resource folder. And there is also a video on my YouTube channel with the reading of that passage. All right, so this question says, which detail would be the most important to include in a summary of the article? Now, again, if I'm summarizing an article, I know that I have to have a central idea. So this question actually needs you to figure out what the central idea is first before you can figure out what detail, supporting detail, you would use to support it. So when I go back to the passage, I realize that Pigeon Patrol is mostly about Project Sea Hunt and how Project Sea Hunt has trained pigeons to be effective team members in search and rescue missions. So now I'm going to look for the detail that best shows this statement, best proves it. He once trained bottlenose dolphins, pilot whales, and goonie birds. All right, so I know that he is actually the guy who created Project Sea Hunt, Jim. This is not an appropriate detail. All this shows me is his background and why he was a good choice for beginning this project. But it really doesn't show me what the pigeons are being trained to do and what happens with them. These objects are often used by people to get help when they're stranded in the ocean. All right, these objects I know are like the life jackets and the flares, the things that they actually train the pigeons to recognize, all those colorful objects. Again, this sentence by itself does not show that the pigeons were effective in search and rescue missions. So I'm going to delete that, eliminate it. The pigeons could see objects from as far as 2,000 feet away. That is really far. If they're able to see objects to rescue people from that far away, that definitely shows what the pigeons were being used for, shows their training, and it shows that they were effective. So I'm very tempted with this answer. D, the pilot was notified in the cockpit by a flashing light and could begin a closer search. All right, very tempting as well. Who was notifying the pilot? The pigeons were. They were pressing a button. All right, so now let's think about this. I know that this is the pigeons notifying the pilot. However, if I was to show this sentence to someone who had not read the article, would they know that this was about pigeons helping search teams to rescue people? No, there's nothing in this line that shows pigeons. It just shows the pilot. So this is not the best, most important detail. C is my answer choice. All right, let's look at one more. We're going to look at a question from the 2014 New York State ELA exam from the passage, The Sea Turtle's Built-in Compass. Now, this is a central idea question, which is the same standard. And so it's asking us to identify which statement from the article best represents a central idea. When I go back into the sea turtle passage, which just like the previous one can be found in the Google Drive Student Resource folder and can also be found on the YouTube channel, I know that this article was about sea turtles navigating or finding their way using a built-in compass that uses the Earth's magnets. And you can actually even look at the title, like I recommended a few slides ago. Sea Turtles Built-in Compass. You use a compass in order to find your way. And that's the central idea of this article. So which one of these statements best matches that central idea? It's born with a magnetic sense that tells it how to find its way from any place on Earth. Yeah, that is incredibly tempting. My central idea is that sea turtles find their way using magnets. This is magnetic sense. How to find its way. I mean, this is almost exactly what I said the central idea was. Loggerheads also seem to have a good memory for places. All right, I mean, having a good memory could help you find something. But that's not really what this article is about. The article is about their built-in compass, which is not about their memory. In the wild, swimming west would take them the wrong way, away from the ocean. No, this does not show their compass. If anything, this shows the failure of their compass during the experiments. Lohman is working to find other factors that are important in helping sea turtles find their way around the world. All right, I mean, that is something that happens in the article, but if this article was about their compass, then finding other things besides the compass is not really the point of this article. So I'm going to go with A. A